Oh, thank you, little roots. Please stay strong.
Welcome to the show, everyone. Welcome to 2021. That is exactly, for me, how 2020 felt. It felt like just when you thought things were going to get better, back down the hill. So welcome to the show. This is Andrew Moon coming to you live from the Orange Nomad Studios right here in Columbus, Ohio. So thank you so much for watching the show today. We want to welcome Robert Givens to the show today. He just wanted to make you, our guest, feel welcome today. He's tuning in from the UK. So welcome back to Robert, a repeat guest. So thank you so much for all that you do and all the love you show to the show, watching in and week after. So thank you so much. So tell us where in the world you're watching from today, and let me know that you can hear me okay, that we get all that technical stuff out of the way. That way we can welcome our guest and get into just a phenomenal discussion today. So welcome back to the show, Daniel Lamas, tuning in. I believe you are from Mexico today. So again, another repeat guest. So thank you so much for all the support that everybody's given us in 2020. We went through 30 weeks of live shows, and week in and week out, you folks show up, you tune in, you give us feedback, you tell us what we're doing and how much you appreciate the show. And I can't thank you enough from the bottom of my heart. So again, let me know that you can hear me okay, and let me know where you're tuning in from. And if you happen to be watching this show on the broadcast or rebroadcast on the replay, let me know where you're tuning in from as well. And also tag me in the conversation, because sometimes if I'm not tagged, I don't see the conversation, but I want to make sure that we definitely get those replies back to folks who watch the show and who take the time to watch after the fact. We realize it's 3 p.m. Eastern time here in the United States, and it's the middle of the night for some folks. We've actually had guests tune in from Sri Lanka and other parts of the world in the middle of the night. So we thank you again. So I do have one big question that I want to ask everyone before we get started. And again, just let me know you can hear me okay, all that audio video stuff. What was your biggest challenge of 2020? And it may be a challenge that maybe you overcame, maybe a challenge in your personal life. And again, just dealing with lockdown was one of my personal challenges. Just keeping that human connection, keeping that one-on-one, building community, staying tuned. All of those things were difficult at times. And again, we're back into semi-lockdown here in the United States as COVID seems to be rampant. But again, this is about overcoming the challenges that we've all had to overcome. So thanks, Robert. He's giving me the thumbs up. He can hear everything okay, so we appreciate that. So if you haven't ever watched this show before, my name is Andrew Moon again. I am the Orange Nomad. I am the founder of Orange Nomad and this show right here, the Do What Is Necessary live stream. And this is a weekly labor of love for me. This is your weekly therapy to stop in the middle of the week and really regroup and think about what we're doing in life, what we're doing in business. And my goal in life is to take hustling entrepreneurs and turn them into calm, visionary, unstoppable CEOs. And I think this show, it certainly lends into it. We talk about a lot of things that people are afraid to talk about. This is totally against the hustle culture that's out there. The Do What Is Necessary live stream is about doing what is necessary for you. And that's different for all of us. It's different for you. It's different for me. It's different for our guests who tune in week in and week out. So again, Daniel tuning in from Mexico City. I believe he can hear me okay, so we appreciate that. But this week, I pick a topic each week that is near and dear to my heart and things that I think people are afraid to talk about, and the stigma around certain topics. I think, that's what I'm here is to educate, to empower people to live unstoppable lives and to live a life on your terms and doing what is necessary for you. And this week is all about mindset. We talked about our biggest challenges of 2020, and I don't think we're out of the woods yet. Unfortunately, I think we're going to see a lot more challenges this year and well beyond. I think our challenges will go well beyond 2021 as well. But what we want to do is empower you with some tools and different ways of thinking about things. And our guest today is a special friend of mine. We connected about 3 years ago. Like-minded, we both came from technology backgrounds. We own technology companies, and we've both exited technology companies. And one of the things that we are dedicated to doing is helping our friends, our colleagues, people that we've known for years, because we made a lot of mistakes running our IT businesses. And that's what we're all about, is educating people the proper way to run an IT business. All the mistakes that we made were about educating members all over the world, and especially IT companies are near and dear to our heart. So please help me welcome to the show today my brother from down under, Mr. Nigel Moore. He's tuning in from Australia, and it is wee hours of the morning for you, my friend. So
my first ever applause. I like it.
Thanks for being up at that. For me, it's the crack of dawn at 7 a.m. So
it is the crack of dawn. It's school holidays, so I didn't have to wake up this
Gotcha.
early.
Nice.
Normally we're up and the kids are getting ready for school at this time, but not now. You woke me up out of bed. I had to set an alarm for today.
I busted up his day off, man. So, but I appreciate you being
my surf time.
Oh, that's right. Is it good surf today?
No, it's horrible. No. You're lucky.
Gotcha. All right, so I lucked out. So I'm off the hook on that one. So
yeah.
Today we're going to talk all about mindset, and I know that's a topic that both of you and I certainly agree on. We agree on many things, and that's why I love working with you. I love the collaboration, the things that we've been able to do so far over the last 3 years, and I look forward to a lot more to come. But mindset is one of those things that certainly is the differentiator between success and feeling like a failure, and especially in life and in business, having the proper mindset is definitely key. But let's go talk about it. A lot of us deal with mindset in a different way. A lot of us, we're challenged in certain areas of our life where mindset in our early parts of our life have certainly shaped the way we think, the way we make decisions, the way we do things now. So I know you have a unique story about some of the challenges, growing up and mindset. So tell us a little bit about that conversation as to really how mindset came to be a real need and a necessary survival tool for you.
Well, as you can probably tell, I'm representing the Orange Nomad shirt today, Team Orange. But so as you can probably tell, I also have orange hair and a name of Nigel. And in school, as a kid, the name Nigel gets turned into Nigel No Friends, and orange hair, as we get called out here in Australia, red-headed rat rooters. We're kind of the outsliders, or the people that everybody picks on and everybody harassed. And so I became in school, especially primary school for me, it was an incredibly crazy time of just being the kid that was picked on, and then that kind of transcended into high school as well. And there was these groups that just picked on me like mad, and I bullied and kicked around and flushed down the toilet with my head first, and all sorts of different things. And as a little kid, that sets some beliefs in you, right? And so I had these beliefs as I was growing up that I was always 1 or 2 or 3 rungs below the ladder of life than everybody else. I was the guy that people picked on, not the guy that was going to go out and change the world or create a big business or do things that people look up to. And so I had that to deal with, and I didn't know any different. For me, it was just me. I didn't realize that all of that bullying that I dealt with in school turned into those limiting beliefs and turned into those thought patterns that happened up in here that stopped me from doing things in life. They stopped me from showing up in the world in the way that I could. It stopped me from creating a good business and stopped me from believing in myself to know that I could go and do something. And it wasn't until probably in my mid to late 20s that I started to realize that a lot of this conditioning and a lot of this stuff that you go through up here is changeable. You can actually go back and rewire some of that stuff, and you can go back and figure out all the root causes of the patterns that have made you show up in the world in a certain way, and you can go back and rewire them and rechange them and deal with all of the crap that you went through and turn it into something good, so that you can actually go out and have a bigger, better impact in the world. And it took me, so I ended up getting to a point where I was working with a few people, like a mindset coach, whatever that happens to be, just going through and uncovering all of this stuff in my world that was just making me show up in a certain way. And once I dealt with it, sure, I think for all of us in our lives, it's a continual journey for each of us to go and just work on stuff in here and figure out all our limiting beliefs or our blockers or our weird, quirky things that we think we see, and then working out how to work through them so that we can become a better, more evolved human the next day. And so I think the last 10 years for me has really been the biggest change in that journey through my whole 30s of just believing in myself a hell of a lot more, going out knowing that I can create a bigger impact in the world and help and serve other people and enjoy it. And nowadays I see my those childhood experiences, I've rewired all those childhood crazy experiences to I actually am extremely grateful that I went through that craziness, because it built me into the human that I am today. And it gave me some resiliency and some grit and some and whatnot, and gave me perspectives on things that I wouldn't have had without it. So it was rough going through. It set me up for probably a horrible 20s, or not a horrible 20s. I didn't have a horrible 20s, but I certainly didn't show up in the way that I could have showed up in the world throughout my 20s. But then it's given me this whole area to be able to change in my 30s and now 40s, where I can show up and have that bigger impact to a group of people in the world that I love and love serving. And same with you, Andrew. We both love serving that IT space and that IT community and helping them as well, because our space, we're typically nerds and geeks, and the nerds and geeks were the ones that were picked on in school. And that was, I think I have a special soft spot for our space, because most of us are nerds and geeks, and most of us were picked on in school and have all these leftover things to deal with. So I love serving them and helping people overcome similar types of challenges that I've had to deal with, and just work out that they can have a bigger, better, or can show up in a better way in the world, and run a business that they want to run, and lead a group of people and lead a team that they need to lead to be able to do what they want to do.
Yeah, amen. I mean, I was the same way. I was picked on in school just relentlessly. I was, the kid who got straight A's that everybody wanted to, help with homework, all that stuff. And yeah, and again, I pushed a lot of that aside for so long that, I used it as a defense mechanism where I had, I was extremely introverted, had a lot of social anxiety, but I knew that I wasn't going to be successful in life being that way. So I kind of transformed myself into an introverted extrovert to be able to survive in a world where, being an introvert has always been looked down on. And, especially when you get picked on, and, I was, 110 pounds soaking wet. So I was the easy thing to pick on, so, but yeah, it's, looking back on those things that, like you said, as you get into your 40s, especially when you start having kids, that's kind of when that reflection part started for me. And especially, I hit 40 the year we sold the business back in 2014. My son was 10 years old. So I started thinking about those legacy things. I started to think about what was life like for me at 9, 10 years old. And really around that time is really what shaped my mindset going forward happened during that time. And I wanted to make a concerted effort to be able to put my best foot forward for my son. He was 10 years old at that time, really didn't know Dad, because I wasn't around. I worked, relentlessly for 10 years building a business. And I think that's a challenge that IT folks have, that, we, especially, we're obsessive compulsive too. So we have a lot of idiosyncrasies. So we tend to, obsess and not be able to let go of one thing and to be able to move on to the next. But what are some things that helped you growing up? What are some things that have helped you, through your 30s now into your 40s? To be able to develop the proper mindset where it is a balance between, protecting yourself and giving of yourself, and kind of having the success in your personal life and your business life.
So a couple of things. We happy to go a little bit woo-woo on this if you want. But a couple of things that work really well for me are meditation and journaling. And so when I was working with a mindset coach, probably 8 or something years ago now, one of the things that he really encouraged me to do, or two of the things that he really encouraged me to do, was that meditation and journaling. And back then I was like, what the heck is this stuff? Like journaling, like I know what happened during my day. I don't have to write this stuff down. I don't, and then meditation is like, you've got to start this thing. You've got to work on this. And I'm like, oh, this stuff's not for me. Like I'm not a Buddha. I'm not out there trying to run a meditation retreat or whatever. And so, but I did, and I dived into those things. And what they did was they gave me this huge awareness and space for reflection, and what that allowed me to do. So with journaling, for instance, I started off journaling just the tactical types of things, like today I went to the beach and had a surf and it was good, and whatever tactical thing was happening in my world, because I didn't know and understand the whole thought of diving into emotions and feelings and all that kind of stuff. Then I had suppressed emotions and feelings my whole life. In our family, we had an amazing, my mum and dad were amazing to bringing us up and whatnot, gave us everything that we needed. We came from quite a poor family, but we still wanted for nothing. But there was very little conversation about emotions and feeling in our family, if any. I don't think I can ever remember a conversation about feelings in our family or emotion. And so my whole life, I didn't deal with any of that stuff. And I didn't realize that I could think about feelings and I could think about emotions and I could talk about them. And so that whole concept of journaling, especially for me, was when I was starting to work with a mindset coach, I started getting into the habit of journaling every day. And after probably a month or 2 or 3, I started to just write about these feelings and emotions and my emotional state and all of that kind of stuff, and just going a layer below all the tactical stuff that we do. And that started helping me get this big awareness around what's going on in here and what drives this thing, and where my weird quirks are, and where my areas for growth are, and opportunities and limiting beliefs and all that stuff. And it just started to see all these not even patterns, but just these things that I could change. And I seeing all these beliefs or these thought patterns or these processes or whatever that are holding me back from doing certain things. And so coupling that with meditation to me was becoming aware of those thoughts a whole lot more, and just seeing them from an objective angle and an objective view, and just seeing what goes through this brain of mine. Previously, I just let it run and I just sat there, and I'd be pretty much on autopilot my whole life. And until I got into that habit of meditation, I just never gave myself pause to look at the thoughts that go through my head and look at the way things show up and whatnot. And so I think that the combination of those two things really, for me personally, helped me just get a much higher awareness around who I am, where I'm going, what I'm doing, how my brain works and whatnot. And then nowadays I still do them. I'm up to, I don't even know now, something like 1,600 days in a row, or 5. Wow. I just hit 5 years in a row of doing them every single day without a break. I did have a couple of breaks in there, but I'm now up to 5 years in a row of every single day. And they've completely changed my world. Some days I still sit there and go, do I need to be doing this? But when I see the results and I see the breakthroughs that I have in journaling, quite often I'll be journaling away going, this challenge, I just don't know how to deal with it. Is it that I'm thinking the wrong way? Is it blah, blah, blah? And then just a light bulb will go on and I'll go, that's how to solve it. This is what I got to do there. And I think that part, especially the thought, just the journaling, the act of just slowing down my thoughts on paper, because in my head, my brain works and my thoughts go 1 trillion miles an hour, just like I'm sure probably most of us. And there's a million thoughts bouncing around left, right, and center and smashing into each other and colliding and turning into mush. But with journaling, I'm forced to slow all of that down and think through those thoughts really slowly at the speed that I can write, which is not very fast. Yeah. And it allowed me to sit with them a little bit more and to think through that particular challenge or that particular thought a little bit more and deeper. And that process for me is sometimes really incredibly powerful to come up with things. I think you're obviously inside our community, our Tech Tribe community, and a lot of what you see inside that Tech Tribe community, the way that we've built the thing, the way that we've grown the business, the way that we've done everything, has come out of me writing about challenges in my journal and just spending intentional time on those things and going, awesome, that's the exact way we can solve that particular thing.
Yeah.
And so they're two of the big things there. I also, as I said, I worked with a mindset coach, whatever you want to call that, a high performance coach, for a certain period of time, just to, I don't even know why I started it. Someone else had been working with him, and I'd seen them get some results out of something and on a Facebook post or something. And I went, oh, like a mindset coach, what the heck is that? But I was in this space where I was needing to make some changes in my life. And so I went, all right, I'm just going to go and try it. I'm just going to throw some money down and try it. And this thing wasn't cheap. We were talking, it was like a $3,000 per month arrangement to work with this person. And so I put that down and started doing the work. And that to me gave me I think all of us, as we go through life and we reflect back, we can see some times when we have big stair steps, instead of going like we're making slow changes and slow tweaks. That there was a big stair step for me. It was a quantum leap for me, that 6 month or so period that we worked together. And that was another big one. That obviously helped me get into the world of meditation and journaling, and a world of other things like high performance and habits and routines and all sorts of stuff like that. But they're probably the three main ones: was working with someone, whether it's a coach, a therapist, whoever it happens to be. I use the term therapist because back 10, 15 years ago, there was this big stigma around therapy being only for someone who's broken. And nowadays, I hope having conversations like this really breaks that stigma down, because therapy is not about, no one out there is broken. We just are. We're just at certain points of our journey. And I think most of us could do with working with a therapist who's trained in understanding our brains a little bit more than what we probably understand them. And so whether it's a therapist you work with, a coach, a psychologist, whatever it happens to be, someone that can help you better understand how your brain works and what quirks and wobbles you might have, and what crazy, awesome strengths that you have in there as well, and help you to work with it a little bit better. I think they're three of my favorite things out there, is that the meditation, journaling, and working with someone that can help understand how this thing works better than we can.
Yeah. And I think, you touched on that too, that the two stigmas that you and I have had to encounter are, bullying. There's a certain stigma that comes with that you don't feel worthy. Your self-worth is, takes a massive hit for a long time. So we don't look at ourselves the same way. And I think a lot of people have gone through things like that in their life, but have suppressed those, like a lot of us have. And when we admit those things that happened, we admit that it has changed us in some way, some good and some bad. But again, the second stigma that you said is getting help. And I think that's a hard part for business owners, is to admit that they need help, and that they admit that they can't do everything themselves. And I was the same way. You become, I don't need anybody, you kind of put yourself on your own little island. And that's really why I started this show, because back in 2008, when I went through the first recession, I was running an IT company, and that's how I felt. I started that business by myself. I had run previous businesses with business partners, and I was like, this one's going to be mine. I'm going to make all the decisions. And 4 years into it, you realize, okay, now it's a recession. Now what? You start wanting to reach out for help. And with peer groups and with other people. And that's why I started this show started on April 1st last year, a couple weeks after we went in lockdown, because I started to think about, for me, it's therapy to sit down and be able to help people to have structure in my life, because last year was just massive disruption for a lot of people. And it's interesting because I've had people comment on that. This is their therapy session for Wednesday afternoons. So, and I said, hopefully the show doesn't send people into therapy, but
this one might with me on it.
Yeah, Ian said she definitely agrees. Self-awareness is key, and again, taking that time to write those things down. Excuse me. To write those things down, to have the awareness, to take the time to think about those things is why, what things do trigger emotions, what things trigger your making, decisions that could possibly self-sabotage you. And that for me, even last year, was a lot of self-awareness for me. Is you start to realize that the way you make decisions, things that trigger you to feel a certain way, go way back, and a lot of them don't make sense now. They made sense when you're trying to protect yourself as a 13-year-old kid, but now it's not about you. You now we've got families, we've got others that we're trying to help, and again, just having a bigger cause outside yourself is certainly important. So what do you think? I think 2020 was tough for IT entrepreneurs in particular. Pretty much a lot of the ones that I've talked to, and you probably have seen it in the tribe, and with your clients as well, is everybody works straight out, keeping the economies running, keeping businesses open. And I think now they're hitting that point where burnout is inevitable. Being taxed to the max is something that I'm hearing a lot of going into this year. So a lot of folks are wanting to figure out, how do I change that? How do I deal with that? So what would be, kind of your keys to changing the mindset around, we talked about it, wanting to get help and admitting that we need help is I think is step one. What are some other things do you think that especially IT entrepreneurs, and I think any entrepreneurs going into this year, will need as far as mindset goes?
So you touched on probably the biggest one just then, peer groups, just being around a group of like-minded people that are sharing the journey with you, because the journey, as we saw last year, can be horrendous on it. It can be crazy. The world was just turned upside down, and so many mental health challenges are going to come out of that for this last year. And if I look back on my whole journey throughout my whole life as well, those three key things I spoke about before, the meditation, the journaling, and working with someone were key. But if the other one that I should add to the mix in there is that notion of peer groups and that notion of being around a group of people. And I've been in some incredibly amazing peer groups through that time where I've got this person out in front of me that I'm working with. It's a coach or whatever that's attacking this thing here. But then I've got my buddies beside me, my colleagues beside me, that are people sharing the journey as me, so that we're not doing it alone. Because as you said, you kind of got through business and you got stuck on this island. That island was just you on it. And I'm sure it was probably the loneliest feeling in the world. That I remember in business, getting to a certain point in business in my early 30s, where that saying, it's lonely at the top, just bounced around in my head every single day. And I'm going, I didn't even think this would ever be a thing, that I can't have conversations with the friends that I grew up with anymore, because we're in completely different worlds. I'm in this business world. I've got no one to talk to about all of these challenges and all these things that are going on. And that started to open my eyes to the need of having people that think similarly to me and are on a similar journey to me in my life and in my world. And so I think if there was anything that I would encourage anybody out there this year to focus on, if you don't already, it's to be very intentional about finding a group of colleagues or buddies or peers or whatever to share the challenge with, and be intentional about creating a regular catch-up routine and a cadence around how you check in with each other. And it can be something as simple as a peer-led peer group, where it's just, you might organize it and you might get everybody, 6 or 8 of you or 4 or 5 of you. Don't make it too big. Probably 6 to 8 is the absolute maximum. And just jump on a call every week or 2, or sometimes 3 or 4, but typically every week or 2. And if you have a framework for those calls, something like, what's your biggest challenge for the week? What do you need help with? And what are you going to do next week? Just a couple of little questions, and everyone has a bit of a round table. It just gives everybody a chance to get their biggest challenge off their shoulders and across onto a collective brain to help brainstorm through that challenge. Because I think one of the biggest challenges through all this overwhelm and this overwork and this what's the word I'm looking for? Just knowing that we're kind of unsure about where the future is going weighs very heavily on all of us. And having a space to just talk about it, you might not even solve the problem. Just talking about it just might get the weight off your shoulders a little bit. So I would highly encourage that. Just figure out if you can get around, or where you can get around people. Now, in my world, the further I got along in business, the more that became and has become a challenge for me, because you just evolve to a certain point in business where you're thinking at a different level and you're doing things at a different level and you're having a different impact out there. And so you have to be extremely intentional about finding peer groups out there that are with like-minded people for you. And sometimes at certain points in my life, I've had to get to the point where I've had to pay $20,000-$30,000 per year to join these peer groups just because I don't know where else to find them. I haven't been able to go and create them organically from friends that I've got out in the world. I've had to go and join a higher level mastermind or a higher level peer group that cost me money just to get access to the people that are thinking at the level that I want to be thinking at. And so I'd encourage you, if you're not in a peer group, if you're not, you don't have a solid group of colleagues or friends or buddies or whatever to share conversations and journeys with on a regular basis, go and either create one yourself, or if you can't find one out there, be perfectly okay with paying to create one, because it's going to be such a life support for you to get through this stuff. And that going through some of those peer groups that I went through and those masterminds that I went through that were fairly expensive on the surface, they were also, to me, massive quantum leaps in my thinking. And I look at the $20,000, $30,000 that I invested in those each year as some of the best investment I've ever made in my life, because they completely changed the way I thought. Because I'm hanging around with people that think in a different level to me. Like a floating tide rises all boats. I start thinking at that bigger level like they are. And that to me is awesome. So if you can go out and find somewhere you can get around a group of people that are thinking even bigger than you and thinking bigger impact than you and solving bigger challenges than you and whatnot, do it. Take that chance. It's amazing what it does, what happens when you're hanging around people that are doing those types of things.
Yeah, I echo that sentiment 100%. And that was tough for me in 2008. There weren't a lot around. There weren't, peer groups kind of was. And again, I searched high and low, trying to find a peer group, and especially in the IT industry, there weren't that many around.
Yes.
Managed services was in its, well in its infancy in 2004.
They only just started.
Yeah, so it was hard to find. But in 2008, that's when what you said. I went, I was bent on finding a group of other entrepreneurs, other peers, to be able to learn from and spend time with. And I think that's huge. Robert echoes that sentiment too. He said, in the past 12 months, I've learned more about me than in the previous 10 years.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I feel very similarly in the past couple of years. It's awesome, Robert. Yeah,
and we had the extra time. Some of us had a little bit of extra time, with COVID last year to be able to take that time. And so in one way, I think those are some positive effects that we saw with last year. It forced people to stop. Yes. It forced people to slow down. And it's forced people to reevaluate. And I think that's what I've seen more than anything is people who are looking at things in their life and saying, do I really need this anymore? Is it serving me? Finding other groups to be a part of was a huge thing for me. Because like you said, it really helps you see things from a different perspective. Because, when we're on our own little island, we only see things a certain way. Having a place to jump into, to just even just voicing it, like you said, just even talking about it is therapeutic, where you realize, okay, that could be, that really doesn't make any sense. That is a limiting belief that I made for myself. Yeah. Is that stopping me from growing spiritually? Is that stopping me from, my family life, those types of things. Ian said, definitely, she definitely agrees that the Tech Tribe, which you're running, is an awesome peer group.
Thank you, Ian.
So, so that was really key for me when I finally found an IT peer group. It wasn't till like 2011, 2012 where I found one that served me well. But I'll tell you where the real change for me came is when I joined, kind of what you said, as you elevate yourself in business, your needs change, your business change, the things that you're looking for are different, when you're a $500,000 company to when you're $1 million company and then million to two. It's just our business challenges are a little bit different. But it was when I found and joined a peer group of people outside of the IT industry that for me, that's where innovation started to happen. And that was kind of the light bulb moment for me, because people were actually giving me valuable feedback of what they think of the IT industry.
Yes.
From somebody outside the IT industry.
Yeah.
And that was huge for me because we as IT people see things a certain way. We see the way that we do business a certain way. We see implementation of technology a certain way. But when somebody else that is another fellow entrepreneur sees it differently, and this is how your customers potentially view your company and the way you do business, that was the light bulb moment for me. So I started adapting things from other industries. And that's where the knowledge sharing comes about, where the true innovation of taking that idea, adapting it for my business, for my industry, and that was huge. That really took me to a completely different place. And so I think that was definitely awesome. So
I'll agree with that. That's that whole that we live, especially in the IT space, and I'm sure it happens in every industry out there, is we quite often get stuck in this echo chamber. We start to have this myopic view of how business works because we're just hanging around other businesses in our industry. And I had that exact same thing, that I started going out and joining some other communities and other peer groups out there, and people that were in the e-commerce space, and people that were in the coaching and training space, and people that were in all sorts of facilitation and all sorts of different things. And I started to see all these perspectives and gain all these perspectives that started to add to my view. And instead of having this myopic view of how I should do business in my industry, I started to see all these other things out there. When I think I 100% agree. It was awesome to just expand the mind a little bit to see perspectives from all other different angles.
Yeah, because my wife's, she's had a photography business for 20 years, and that was interesting. I used to go to trade shows with her. That's kind of how I got some into, video production, that kind of thing. But that's what, start to go to those trade shows. And again, you start to see ideas, and then you're like, okay, that would be a really cool idea if I implemented that as a client onboarding. That's where I got a lot of the ideas for our initial client onboarding came from the photography industry. Wedding photographers especially, it's that presentation, that's your special day. But those ideas of how to package that up and how to put that information out there was awesome, because it was like, I never thought of that before. That's actually pretty cool. But again, just finding, I completely agree there. You got to find a place. And especially that I think is the mindset change that needs to happen. You need to admit that you can't do all of this by yourself, and move forward. Because I think, what are some other challenges do you kind of see with your community coming up in 2021 that folks are looking to be able to solve, or that they really should think about solving or thinking differently about?
So I'm gonna go 20,000 foot view here and make a little bit up in the air, rather than a tactical thing, because there's a million tactical things you can find out there. Yeah. And I'm going to say one of the biggest challenges, and it's not just this year, but this year's kind of highlighted it. Last year. We're only 4 days or 7 days into this year, but one of the biggest challenges is, but I also see as an opportunity, is the way we think about things. And what I mean by that is when I look, like if you look back on last year, a lot of people will see that as this huge challenging year that was horrible, and they're looking for all the bad that came out of the thing. Where we've got this amazing opportunity now as humans to look back on that year and go, what is all the awesome stuff that's happened because of that? Because of these challenging times or whatever, what opportunities have been opened up, or what new ways of thinking have been unlocked in my mind? And to me, one of the biggest things that I've had success with over the past 10 years is always figuring out what the opportunity is out of every challenge. And I think this year is an awesome year for everybody to start to think, whenever they get hit with a challenge, or whenever they get hit with something that's just horrible or tough or whatever, it's to figure out how they can reframe that, or figure out how they can find what the lesson is that's in there. Because when you look at last year, it's sure there's toughness and there's challenge and there's whatnot in there, but inside every single thing that's gone on in there, I guarantee you there's lessons in there. And if you can find those lessons, and you can reframe that whole notion of it was a horrible year into it was an amazing year that gave me all of these new ways to think, and this new belief in ways I'm doing things, and this new drive to go and make changes, you can really see the world in a completely different light. And the old saying, like, there's to every yin there's always a yang, to light there's always dark. There's always this balance of good and bad out there. And I see in every single situation nowadays that happens for me, as horrible as they are, I still always look to find the reframe. Like, what is the positive side of that thing? What's the lesson I can learn out of here? What's the awesomeness that's out of this thing? And I think that's what I said. I'm going to the 20,000 foot view here. Is that I see this year as a year that you can really double down on that. You can really go, all right, as I view this year, how can I view everything that happens and find the awesomeness in it, and the opportunity in there, and the lessons in there, and the wins in there, even through all the crazy stuff that has and will happen through this time. What can I take out of it to go and build a better business, and to think differently, and create more and do more and have more and whatnot. And so for me, like, there's all the tactical stuff is there. It's go and do some more marketing and double down on those things and all that stuff. But the more you can reframe every challenge, and I'm talking about challenges as down to things like losing key staff members in your business. I'm working with one of the guys in my coaching program at the moment, where he's losing a key staff member that he's had for many, many years right now. And on the surface, he's looking at it going, holy crap, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. But the more I'm helping him dig into that particular challenge, the more he's starting to realize that this is going to be one of the best things that's ever happened to him, because it's forcing him to make some changes in his business to get rid of key man problems that he's got in there, and forcing him to go and start turning it into a business that's not built around this one key person that he's got in it. And so I think there's so much opportunity this year, especially, to give pause to that every challenge that you've got, and find what the opportunity, or what the lesson, or what the win, or what the positive side of that, whatever that dark thing is that might be happening out there is. Because there is, and I can't think of a single thing in my life and any lives of people around me that's been a challenge that hasn't had lessons in there, amazing lessons and amazing outcomes in there, as horrible as some of the things are. And there's probably an entire side conversation that we can go so deep into that stuff out there. But I just wanted to open up and just bring it out. I think it's just, the more we can use our brains to reframe this stuff, the easier life we have, the more we see the good in things, the more we can show up with an attitude of gratitude, for want of a better phrase. And the more we're in that mode of gratitude and being grateful and finding the wins and finding the lessons, the better we're going to show up each day, and the more fun we're going to have, and the more impact we're going to have, and ultimately the less stress we're going to have out there.
Yeah, and I think, a lot of folks that kind of started thinking about that going into, like, especially during the fourth quarter, the tail end of December, people started thinking about this year, and it's amazing that, with all of the change, uncertainty, anxiety, all of those things that came about last year, that's kind of what I started to finally see in December, and I'm starting to see it into this year, and we want to continue that, is what you said, the ability to take the good things that we learned. And I think for a lot of people that were on the fence as to starting new business, I mean, they're saying, entrepreneurship is going to skyrocket. And again, some people have been forced into that, being laid off, but then there's others who, just kind of took it easy for a while, that have been thinking about it, mulling it over. And that was kind of the impetus for change for them as to what happened. This is a good time for me to I don't need to go drive to an office. And that was an interesting dichotomy we're seeing here in the States anyway, is people moving out of the cities into rural, because now the social acceptance of working from home, working from anywhere, which is what we were trying to sell back when I had my MSP 6 years. That's the whole concept we were trying to sell. Now that's mainstream. Now we're seeing huge shifts of people moving because I don't need to live here anymore. I can go live where I've always wanted to live and have a completely different life. And I think that's pretty cool to be able to think in that way. So Javier's on here showing us some more love from Mexico. Yes, you will get the heavy dose of orange, my friend. So just to answer your question, that is I'm going to break down my whole video setup. It is actually a dark background with a orange light behind me. So, and that's kind of an interesting, kind of touching on that I'm starting to see a lot more, IT folks. We get into tech, we get into gear, and video, presence on video, doing things like this. We're starting to see that mindset shift that, okay, I need to embrace this. I need to embrace being able to do things in a digital world and, kind of up my game here. And I think that's another thing that we can lead with in the tech industry, is helping people take this normal thing that we have now as being on a screen talking to a camera how do we make that better? How do we build better connections? How do we present ourselves better? Is going to be, that's a mindset shift that we're starting to finally see IT folks embrace that. And again, they're going to be forced to, because we're going to see lots of shifts and changes in the MSP space over the next, I think, this first quarter is going to be quite telling. Javier says it was a great year for a lot of MSPs in the tribe. They're wise enough to see the great possibilities in the bad. And I think I love the fact that that's what you promote on there, that, again, in every bad situation, there is always good. Dealing with the bad is sometimes super tough to deal with, takes us a little bit of time.
Yeah.
But the eventuality of everything is there's good that can come out of everything. So you talked about a little bit about, from an IT space. So those of you who happen to be watching too, if you have a question for Nigel, go ahead and drop that in the comments wherever you happen to be watching from. We'll ask him live. We'll, if you've got some Q&A that you'd like to do, I'd love to be able to cover that too. But I think, this year, you kind of touched on it too. One of the big pain points, at least I think has always plagued the IT industry, is sales and marketing. And that was a mindset shift for me. I would say about 2011, 2012, that like everybody else, I relied on referrals, word of mouth, and didn't give much thought to marketing. But again, the research is still being borne out even as of last year. Sales and marketing is one of the things that keeps MSPs up at night, IT, any companies. But I think it especially plagues the IT industry. But that was a mindset shift for me in 2012, especially, where, you talked about losing key staff. That's when I realized that, okay, it has to be about systems and process. I can't be the, person with all the knowledge. You can't be in two different places at once. And then in order for me to grow this thing, in order to have that a calm feeling about running a company, you can't do everything yourself. So we started delegating. We started documenting systems and processes first. And then we moved into, one of them the challenge was, okay, we have to tackle this whole sales and marketing thing. And that's where the mindset shift for me became, we're not a tech company anymore. We are a sales and marketing company that happens to provide tech services. So when I changed that in my head, and that was my approach going into every day, that's when things really changed, for me. My perception of what we do, what we're about, changed. And it was an amazing thing because, business, it felt like it would fall in your lap. And, the things that we started to do, building relationships, starting conversations where it wasn't about sales, because, I hated sales. We get creeped out when we get in the sales process. So we started with, it has to be about relationships. That's what we're all most comfortable with. And when I changed our approach to that, like I said, an amazing thing happened where that kind of changed. And our business started to grow exponentially without me putting much effort into it, it felt like. But it took some time. I mean, have you seen that in your business? I know we've talked a little bit about this, running our own IT businesses before. When you start and stop marketing all the time, what effect did that have on your business, and that you probably still see now?
Yeah, by far it is the biggest challenge out there for MSPs in our space, or IT companies in our space, is how do I do marketing? And I speak to a lot of MSPs and coach a lot of MSPs out there through this particular challenge. And most of it, again, is just up in here. It's just mindset. It's nothing else. And what I encourage people is that, especially MSP business owners, especially technical-led MSP business owners, you guys are and girls are incredibly smart humans, and troubleshooting a broken Active Directory system where you've got to seize FSMO roles and all this kind of stuff, that is much harder than marketing. That's actually much harder and much more complicated than marketing. And the reason a lot of people are scared of marketing is just its fear of the unknown, and they haven't put the time into understanding it well enough yet. And for me, it was exactly that case. Technical stuff was what I knew, and it's where my comfort level was. And that's all I focused on in for many years, was just my technical knowledge. And not until I'm going to say 8-9 years ago or something, maybe even less, maybe 7 years ago or something, I started to go, all right, well, this marketing thing, I've got to figure it out a little bit. I've got to understand this thing a little bit. And so I started to deep dive the same way I used to deep dive in understanding technical stuff. When small business servers came out, I just deep dived into playing with it and learning it and reading about it and breaking it and whatnot. And the marketing world is exactly that. It's just the same thing. There is untold worlds of wisdom out there in books and courses and YouTube things and all sorts of stuff on how the marketing world works. And it's all just about breaking things. Marketing is just getting something out there, testing it, seeing if it works, and moving on. And as soon as I took that approach to the marketing angle, as I took to the whole understanding tech angle, things changed dramatically for me. I was able to see marketing as just this other thing that the more time I put into it, the better I get at it. And nowadays I'm a very, very confident marketer. And that's only because I've put the time into it. And I've probably spent well over six figures, probably multi six figures in building marketing knowledge and marketing wisdom into here. And then from there, I have to build it into our team and into our structure and into our business. But for most people, it is that fear of the unknown. And there's two parts of it. Number one is just the fear of the unknown of how marketing works. Like, how tactically do we run Facebook ads? Do we run Google ads? Do we do paid print media, whatever it is? I think some of it is that, but the other part of it is getting ourselves out there. And Andrew, you talked about a lot of us in our space being introverted, and I'm very similar to you in that I've had to curate an extroverted version of Nigel, because I was the kind of guy that you turn up to a party and I'd sit in a corner because I didn't want to speak to anybody. And over the years, I've had to change that. And the more I've changed that, the easier marketing becomes, because the easier it becomes to go and put yourself out there. And that whole notion of just trying to become a little bit more extroverted to get you or your business out there. And let's face it, most of our businesses, we see them as an extension of ourselves, especially in the early years as we're getting them. It's like a baby to us that we're getting out there. And so it can be tough to mentally to go and put our wares out there, or put our business out there, or hang our shingle out there in front of people and proudly say, hey, we've got a good service here. We've got a good thing going on here. We believe you should come and work with us. And that does take some shifting, and it's not something that for me at least, that didn't click overnight and me go, okay, now I'm perfectly comfortable getting my face out there. It took me a lot of time to get my face and my name and my business and be comfortable pushing that stuff out there. And some of it was working through my challenges of very low self-worth around things from that whole childhood that we were talking about. But other parts of it came around not having complete confidence in my product and in my offering. And so I think the two-pronged attack for me for being comfortable at marketing was number one, obviously understanding it, putting the time into understanding it. And you go and put 100 hours or 500 hours into understanding marketing over a year, you will get much better at it than you are now. But the other part of it was making sure that I had a product that I was damn proud of and that got results for my clients, because that made things so much easier to go out and be comfortable putting our stuff out there and just saying, hey, we do have something that's good here. We do have something that's helpful for people. In my MSP, I had this challenge for a while where I knew that we were okay to good at what we did for a phase, but we weren't the best in the world. And so I was always like, well, I can't ethically market out there unless I'm the best in the world, because otherwise my client should actually be going to those people, not me. Right. And I shouldn't be doing anything until I get to be the best in the world. But what I realized is to try and be the best in the world is, number one, like nearly impossible for anybody out there, or especially for me. But all I needed to be was the best in their world. I needed to be the best in my client's world, and I needed to be able to be better than either their incumbent provider or whatever they've currently got going on. And that's all I needed to be. It still meant that gave me the permission to go out and still do marketing, because I was still taking them from a place of working with a bad provider or having a horrible setup or whatever it happened to be, to a better place. It wasn't the best in the world. There's only one MSP that's the best in the world. I don't know who it is. I'd love to meet them one day. But I kind of had to go through that phase of giving myself permission to not be the best. I was just creating something that's better for my clients than what they've currently got. And that helped me. I don't know if that shift helps anybody else, but it helped me really get to grips with being able to market, because then I realized that I can go into it. And obviously I still built into our business every day, trying to figure out how we can get better and how we can improve things and how we can grow and create stuff. And that was part of our culture. But just knowing that, or just feeling comfortable with marketing, knowing that when I bring on the right client, I am going to make their world better, and we are going to make their world better in some way, shape, or form. Was a big shift for me.
Yeah, and that's where we started. I was the same way, because I knew that there were certain things that we probably could get better at, but I didn't really know what those things were. And that's where, when we started taking that on, I made a concerted effort, and I still do this today. My Thursday afternoons for me are about meeting other people, learning about other people, learning about other industries. So I started to do that, and that's for me. I started making a weekly time on, I forget which day I used to do it. I think it was Wednesday afternoons worked best for me, where I would go have coffee with other people that I met online through LinkedIn or through networking groups or at other events. And I started making a concerted effort, because like for me, I work best when I'm one-on-one with somebody.
Yes.
And it's hard to do that, especially when you start a sales process with somebody, they don't really give you 100% of what you need to know. So that was where I made a concerted effort to start learning about people, learning about their industry, learning about their challenges in an informal environment where we're just having coffee talking. And I learned so much about industries, about people, about problems, issues that people had. And again, you weave that into what we do with IT. So I started to learn about those things that were specific challenges to people and specific industries, and I started learning how do we help them solve that problem?
Yeah.
And when I started doing that, went into it with market research as my 100% goal for 6 months to a year. Then I knew what my marketing should be. I knew what message to send. I knew what pain points that would resonate with people. And I think that for me changed how we did marketing, because like you, it's the same thing. You start thinking about tactics. Oh, we need to do Facebook. We need to do YouTube. We need to. So I did the same thing, and you end up wasting money because you never really get good at one thing.
Correct. Yeah.
So I stopped doing that. I'm like, okay, we're going to get, we started with a print newsletter. I'm going to get good at sending a printed newsletter every month, and we're going to put a system and a process around it so that I don't have to do it. And we did that. It took us like 3 months to do it. And then every month it went out like clockwork. Took less than $200 or 2 hours. It was $300 because we would keep the list at 150 people we would send to. So again, all of those things you kind of learn. It was all about the strategy of it more than anything. And once you take the time to learn that, you learn what those pain points are. You learn what your marketing should be.
Oh yeah.
Then it became easier, like you said. Then you just start studying how to do the tactical things, how to properly do LinkedIn, how to properly do YouTube, how to properly do direct marketing.
They're all the easy things. It's just as easy as understanding how to do an Exchange server.
Yeah. And so Ian said, Nigel, wouldn't you say marketing has now become incredibly technical? I'm seeing more and more similarities between running a marketing business and running a tech business. The areas of expertise are now so broad between web design, optimization. Let me bring that back up here. Copywriting, branding, ad management.
Yeah. I would say marketing has always been technical. Even back before computers existed, marketing was technical. It's just a series of tactics that all strung together. But as you just said, Andrew, the real ROI out of marketing is taking that step above and being strategic about your marketing and making sure that you've got a strategy there. All the tactical stuff, whether it was writing and doing back in the direct response marketing days of before computers existed, where it was typewriter written sales letters that were sent out. It was still a technical process. It was still and the copywriting and all of that stuff was still a very technical process that people went through. There was frameworks for that copy. There was, as you said, Andrew, the whole notion of understanding your pain points and your frustrations and fears and wants and aspirations of your target market out there. That's all tactical parts of doing this stuff. And it's a very technical approach to it. You can 100% and you can look at this the same way you look at nearly any technical challenges. There is a a challenge here of how am I going to do my marketing? How do I take a step up above all the technical mumbo jumbo and the strategies, or sorry, the tactics that I've got available to me and the mediums I've got available to me, and build the strategy above it. And the strategy is the toughest part. That's the part that you need to spend some time on. But there's amazing methodologies out there. There's amazing books out there that can help you out with that strategy side of things. And once you figure that out, and literally marketing is just finding a bunch of raving hungry customers and going and serving them with a need. That's what it's about. And you've just got to figure out who that raving bunch of customers is for you and what need can you serve really, 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 really well. And for MSPs, it's pretty simple. Our value prop at the moment still is pretty simple. We help businesses run better with technology. And the real ROI comes out of how deep you go into the type of businesses you look like you try to serve, whether it's you're serving dentists in Ohio or whatever it happens to be, and then coming up with crafty copy. And that's to me is probably the hardest part of the lot is copywriting. And you'll notice like in any marketing, copy is 60, 70, 80, 90% of the work, and writing good words and writing words that sell and writing words that persuade is most of the work. And that's a skill that I believe nearly anybody, pretty much anybody can learn. And there is, if I was to suggest to anybody out there in the world at the moment that's just starting their marketing journey, where should they go? They should go and learn copy. They should go and learn how to use words to sell, or use words to persuade, or use words to educate. Sell is, I use the word sell there because essentially that's what we are doing. We're going out to sell a service. But what the phrase I like to use when I think about marketing, and I can't remember where I heard this, but I heard a guy say it, and he said, when you pitch, people run, but when you teach, people come. Yep. And to me, that's so true. Is when you're writing your copy and when you're writing your stuff out there, you shouldn't be trying to pitch stuff like crazy out there. You should be trying to teach and educate and help people understand what challenges they're facing and how they might be able to overcome them. Because by using technology and whatnot, because the more they see you as someone that's understanding what keeps them up at night with their technology, the more they're going to come running to you when they need help. And to me, it's a kind of long-winded way to go and say that, but
no. And again, your copy comes from a lot of times. My copy came from what people actually would tell me on these copy meetings.
Comes from your customers.
I'm like that became, and then it became easy to tell that story. I just had to tell the exact story that they told me having that informal coffee meeting, and this is how I help people solve the problem. And you know, one of the key things that you touched on was teaching people. So we got good at lunch and learns. And I know we can't do in-person events right now, but I think the exact premise is the same. We can teach in a virtual world right now, and I think that is going to be, again, it's another mindset shift that needs to happen in 2021 and possibly beyond, because work from home is accepted now. It is mainstream. But we got good at lunch and learns. I was not there to sell anything. We were there to teach, to educate, and again, it became easier as we put the process around it. We developed the systems, the process, the checklist, all of that. And again, that's the hard part. Presenting content came from what I was learning on coffee meetings, and what I was learning in network groups, in a non-sales environment, because that's when you get the true heart of what people think and believe. And, you know, they basically tell you exactly what you need to do to sell them your service. If you solve that problem, you solve it well, you know, then you become the standard, you become the educator. And then again, I still get leads to this day for IT, and I've been out of the business for 6 years. But it's because of what we did 10 years ago and we started to do. That people may not have that problem the minute you talk with them the first time, but everything's in flux right now, and even more is going to change going forward. But it's being an educator is key.
And what I'll add to that, and it's kind of on the topic of marketing tactics, is that one of the biggest mistakes I see most companies make out there, MSPs included, and most of us, is that they don't go deep enough into a particular tactic to get good at it. And you just talked about lunch and learns, where you did it for a long period of time to get good at it. And I'm sure you had, your first ones were horrendous. They were horrible. Just like the first version of every piece of marketing I put out there is always horrible. But what I see far too many people do is give up. And so in the lunch and learns, if you gave up after your first 3, you probably wouldn't have seen results. But I'm sure you probably got to 4 or 5 or 6 or whatever of them, and you started to get this thing running well. And I see the same thing happen with paid media. People go out and they go, oh, I've put $500 down on Google Ads and I haven't got a client yet. Right. And the reality is they just haven't spent enough money yet. You've got to spend, typically in the MSP space, you've got to be spending thousands of dollars in Google Ads before you'll get your first client, because you're learning how the platform works. You're learning what copy to use with your marketplace. You're learning how to do this whole thing, how to set up your landing pages and your call to actions and all that kind of stuff. And it takes time. And so my biggest encouragement there for anybody out there starting some marketing tactics is stick with a marketing tactic for long enough to get good at it. It takes time. It takes time for some of us. Myself, it takes a lot of time to learn them. I know when we got our first Facebook ads funnel working for the Tech Tribe, it cost me $8,000 and probably 100 or 200 hours of my time. And I was paying an external contractor as well to go and get it working before we got it running profitably. Yeah. But if I got to $3,000 or $5,000 or $6,000 and gave up, I would have not got 300-400 clients at $50 per client afterwards, because I was very close to it. And I see that happen all too often as well, is that people just give up far too early. Go and pick the mode, or 1 or 2 or 3 mediums that work in your space. We know in the IT space, Google Ads works. We know direct response marketing works. We know lunch and learns work. We know networking and prospecting works in the MSP space. Go and pick 1 or 2 or 3 of them and go all in on them. Go and say, I'm going to stick with this for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 months of going as hard as I possibly can on it to get past the hump of learning what doesn't work and figuring out all the things that I'm going to break and figuring out the way to pitch and to position my copy. I shouldn't use the word pitch there because I just said, no, don't pitch. But go and put that extra time in. That's where the money is. And I see far too many people go, I put $500 in here, it didn't work. Throw $500 in over here, it didn't work. I spent 1 month doing a LinkedIn learn, it didn't work. And they're going, marketing doesn't work for me. And it becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy, in that they keep saying marketing doesn't work and marketing doesn't work. And they get back into this mode where they can never grow their business because they've built these belief patterns that it doesn't work. And all they've got to do is just focus on 1 or 2 and push through and push through and push through, which will be hard. And you'll be throwing money in there sometimes going, oh man, like I've got no money left and I'm throwing this last 300 into this thing to try and get this thing going. But if you keep going at it in a mode and in a modality, like in a medium, using a medium that's proven to work in your industry, you will get there.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, it's learning the process. Javier said, "Done's better than perfect." Yeah, and that for me was a long one to get over, because I was a perfectionist.
I'm still getting over it.
I know. I still have to reiterate that mantra. And again, it's kind of going back to what you talked about. Is for me, every time I started and then I stopped marketing and then started again, it generally took me 6 months before I would start to see results
like a
again.
Flywheel.
Yeah,
and slowly start to turn it, and then once it starts to get some momentum, it starts spinning. It's much easier to spin, but to get the thing going, and then you let it stop, you got to restart that flywheel again. You got to restart it.
And once I figured that out, I'm like, I got to, even when I'm busy, we're implementing, we're doing projects, we're doing all of those things. I still have to be doing those things. And again, that's what made it easier, is when I had systems and process that you can have a virtual admin do. Pretty much we had our newsletter down to, the only thing that I physically had to do, I specifically wrote the back page article for my newsletter. But the rest of it was content from my vendors, which there's even more now. So we would put, content from vendors in there. We would put articles that we would curate from other sources, marketing peer groups that we were a part of. But the back page was always mine. So that was the only thing that I really had to do for the newsletter. Everything else, a virtual admin handled. And the lists were pulled. We knew who the vendor was to get them printed. And we would actually ship everything to, I actually got an intern here, a college student that would stuff all the envelopes, put stamps on them, do all of that for $50.
Right.
And I was like, but again, I didn't have to worry about any of it. Yeah. But again, once we got that down, the system on that. And then we started, LinkedIn was the same thing, where I started to document, systematize, test, figure out what works, what doesn't work. And then we had a system on that, and then lunch, and then again, you just take the next one, lunch and learns. I'm like, okay, that's where we're going to be. It's much easier to educate a room full of 50 people than it is to do 50 one-on-one sessions with people. And now, like I said, it's even easier now because, right now we have a global audience watching this show on a Wednesday afternoon. And again, that just totally blew me away.
Thursday morning.
That was, again, one of those benefits that came out of last year was this medium right here, and being able to jump on LinkedIn Live, connect with people all over the world. Now we're on YouTube and Facebook, being able to promote, educate, and encourage entrepreneurs all over the world from one platform. But again, you look at our first show on April 1st, it was bad, man. I go back and look at it, I'm like, okay, this was bad.
Consistency makes it work too, right?
Yeah, and it's like
in marketing, consistency is one of the key levers in there. Obviously, getting your messaging and marketing right, message and medium right, to make sure that you're marketing with the right words to the right people on the right platform. But being consistent at it is a superpower in there. And for the way that you've done it, where you say, okay, well, let's go pick a medium. Our medium's going to be lunch and learns. The first part is going to be incredibly tough on me because I got to figure that stuff out. I got to figure out how to make it consistent without me having to do all the work. And then you go through and you do that 3, 4, 5 months or whatever, and you turn that consistent marketing pillar on so that it's then there and happening permanently in your business. Same then goes for your printed newsletter. You go and figure out how to make that thing consistent without you being stuck at the center of it. And it just keeps going. And that the more you build these consistent things, the faster your flywheel starts running. And to me, that consistency is kind of that fourth superpower of marketing. You got to get your message, your medium, and your media, your people right. But then being consistent with it is where you really get the results. Just day in, day out, making sure that flywheel is still spinning.
Yeah, and that was huge for us to figure out. Okay, I'm going to start marketing, we're going to start doing something. So that's what we immediately. You pick the things that are free or cheap, and start doing those things. And
exactly.
But again, it teaches you that mindset of, okay, this is a process, this is systems, this is documentation, so that everything else that you can do. But one of the key things for me is every time we would do that, we would debrief. Every time we would do a campaign, we would debrief what went right, what went wrong, what things would we make better. And we weren't trying to do everything all at the same time right out of the gate, because that's just a recipe for failure and a recipe for spending thousands and thousands of dollars.
Pick 2 or 3 at most.
Awesome.
And that's it.
So I know, we're running long. We still have guests on the show. Is there any kind of, I appreciate, you're taking the time to talk to us this year, being on the show early. Any other recommendations that you could make to entrepreneurs, to especially not just in the IT industry, but since you serve the IT industry especially, I popped up your LinkedIn connection. Please reach out, connect with Nigel on LinkedIn. What other mindset shifts do you think should happen in 2021, not just in our industry?
Good question. I think so much of what we spoke about just comes into it, right? Like just shifting from a mindset of a fixed mindset to a growth mindset, seeing the world in a different light and seeing challenges in a different light. And to me, and obviously a growth mindset being that we double down and figure out where we can learn and where we can grow and where we can improve. And so to me, I think everything that we've said culminates in that. It culminates in building a growth mindset up in here, where we believe that there is more that we can do in the world, and we believe that we can create more and be more and do more and all that stuff. And I think all the stuff we ran through it kind of culminates perfectly into that point of just whether it's meditation, journaling, whatever it is, just a self-awareness around things, and getting around a group of peers, having some help at different angles around there to dive in and help you, and having that growth mindset where you're continually injecting stuff into here from other industries and other perspectives and other books and other people and all sorts of stuff to go out and show up in the world. I think is huge to me, and it's huge to a lot of the people that I work with. Is just that thing. It's this forward thing. And I think a lot of us as business owners, we've got this deep desire to always be moving forward, to be in momentum, to be in, and there's this great coach called Alex Sharfin out in the world who wrote this book called The Entrepreneurial Personality Type that dives very deep into our psyche of this deep heated, like this deep-seated desire of entrepreneurs to want and grow every day and be in momentum and be moving forward. And to me, all of this stuff leads into that. Like doing all of this stuff just completely leads into just our deep-seated desire for wanting to move forward and be bigger and better and stronger and whatever the next day. And Alex, in the book, really, when I first read that book, The Entrepreneurial Personality Type, I'm reading it going, holy crap, like this is just me to a T, is describing exactly my type of desire and need to be doing bigger and better things and creating more and doing more every single day. And it's innate, built into us from back in the hunter-gatherer days. And so to me, whatever we can be doing to make sure that we're aware of where we're going, we're taking some reflection time out to make sure that we're not just operating in subconscious mode forever and just going out and improving every day and learning more every day and finding the lessons in the challenges and whatnot, to me is what life's all about. It's evolving every day into a better human. And to me, that's my personal life philosophy, is if I can evolve every day into a better human than the day I was before and make a bigger impact in the world than the day before, then that's I'll be 90, 100, 120 in my deathbed looking back going, well, I did good. I think I'm kind of proud of what I did. And that's to me ultimately what it's about.
Yeah, running business is definitely about more than just money. And if it's all about money, then yeah, you're doing it wrong, my opinion. So
absolutely.
So I'm going to pop up too here, for those of you who, we talked a little bit about Tech Tribe, which Nigel runs. It's a community for tech-minded entrepreneurs, tech companies. Again, I've had a great, benefit being part of helping him grow over the last 3 years, doing unique things together. So check that out. Anything that you've got coming up in the Tech Tribe this year that you think will be specifically useful to IT companies, this year?
We have worlds of stuff coming up.
Good.
You know me, we never stop releasing new content and training. And inside our community, a big focus this year is going to be on our education piece. And we worked with you last year to go and launch one of your LinkedIn programs in there. We created a program around running TBR or QBRs, which is quarterly business reviews in the MSP space. And this year, we're going to be focusing on getting some key marketing and growth training in there as well. And so that's the growth and training and the education side of things, but also the community side for us is so darned important because we talked about that whole notion of peer groups and everything. And so we're growing like crazy in the Tech Tribe at the moment. We're nearly hitting 1,500 paid MSPs in there. And the more we grow, the more we realize that we still want to keep a small feel to the thing because there's such power in having that smaller group of people around you. And so we're going to be working this year as well on how do we have smaller mini tribes within our tribe? How do we have these little, whether we call them warrior pods or whatever it happens to be, which will be us helping the people inside our program get themselves locked into a group of their peers and give them some frameworks for how to run that and whatnot. So that, as well as a couple of things like we plan, hopefully, if I'm allowed to travel, we're going to plan a retreat or two somewhere around the world where we can get a small bunch of us and hang out in maybe a crazy cool villa in Spain or a beachfront mansion in Thailand or something like that, where we can go and do a little bit of masterminding and hanging out and sharing the challenges and the journeys together and dealing with all the crap that we've got going on in here. So we've got that on there if we're allowed to travel again.
I'm looking forward to that, man.
So. Oh, man, I can't wait. We're a traveling family. Typically, we're normally overseas 2, 3, sometimes 4 times a year. And we've been struggling as well with that. But I know that's a first world problem. And then there's people with far worse things out there than our travel addiction. So we will live. We'll be fine. But I am looking forward to it. That's for sure.
It'll be nice. You and I haven't, we've only met virtually. We've not met in person. So I'm actually looking forward to that. Being able to hang out. But no, again, the link on the screen here, if you're watching this after the fact, or if you're curious about the Tech Tribe 2, Nigel's been kind enough to give you 40% off. So if you use the link there to be able to sign up for the Tech Tribe, you get 40% off of your initial sign up. So thank you, Nigel, so much for hanging out today, for giving us just an absolute treasure trove of nuggets and tips and tricks. And again, it's all about the things that we learn, and some things good, some things bad, but being able to share those things. So thank you so much for hanging out with us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on. It's always fun to talk about this stuff. And I think I love talking with you, Andrew, because you're like me. We're very transparent in our journey nowadays. And it took me some time to be able to talk about this stuff. But I think doing it like this is very important because it helps other people realize that it's okay to talk about this stuff. And so I love it, Andrew. Thank you for creating the space where people can have conversations like this, because I'm sure it's helping tons of other people realize that they can talk about the craziness that goes on in our heads and whatnot. So well done. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks again, Nigel. We appreciate it, man. I'll give you a shout out.
Love the applause.
So thanks again for hanging out with us this week. Again, this show has been a absolute pleasure for me every week, and an absolute labor of love since we started. So if there's things that you've enjoyed about the show, please put those in the comments. Let us know. Give us a thumbs up. Share the love. More importantly, if you know that somebody that can benefit from the content, from the subjects that we cover, I would love it if you would be able to share this with a friend, share it with your neighbor, share it with your dog, whoever, but be able to share this so that we can expand the reach of the Do What Is Necessary movement. Because again, I am dedicated 100% in doing what is helping you to do what is necessary for you. Because that is different, completely different for everybody else. And that we need to stop listening to what other people say our life should look like. And that we start living our life with meaning, with purpose, a life that fits our goals, our motivations. And again, like Nigel said, I think that was the greatest thing there at the end, that if we come from a place of being able to give back and to be able to take all of the things that we've learned over years of whether it's in business or just life and being able to share that, I think that's immense value for everybody. So this is Hyann. She definitely agreed all the points that were made. And she, Hyann, I thank you so much for being on the show again. We're appreciative of all those folks who tune in and week out, who watch the show, who message me after the fact. And that's, one of the things that I've appreciated most about this show is the messages that I receive after the fact about the people that we've helped along the way. And talking about things like bullying, talking about things like getting help when we need it. Because as entrepreneurs, as people, as a societies around the world, we need each other more than ever. And I think that's what we have seen up to this point. That despite all of the terrible things that are going on in the world, we still see people wanting to do things, to wanting to give back, wanting to make the world a better place. And we do that by sharing our experiences with each other. And that's really, this is the labor of love for me, is this show. So I'm happy to be back in 2021. This is season 2 for us. We got 30 broadcasts down under our belt in 2020. And this is broadcast number 1 of our season 2 of the Do What Is Necessary live stream. So thanks again for watching. Tune in next week. We'll be back with another special topic, and then we'll have another guest the week after next as well. So thanks again for watching. I will see you next week. And as I say on every one of my shows, always stay humble and kind, and always do what is necessary. I'll see you next week.